Chapter 11 of The Keeping Room by Anna Myers. I no longer write imaginary letters to my father. Someday I will write a real letter, but I do not yet know what words I will use. You've arranged for Captain Harkins to be buried in the Quaker cemetery, and I am surprised that he was able to secure permission for me to attend the burial. The Quakers do not believe in decorated graves, but on a small stone Euvan chisels, Matthew Harkins of Dover, England. He was a friend. There is no mention of his military rank or of the war. Captain Harkins was well liked. Many British soldiers stand about. There are drum rolls as the burial takes place, but I do not think of the redcoats or of the music. My mind is full of the captain's son, a baby who will never see his father because of me. The snow is still falling and will soon be deep. We do not often have big snows. I watch the fat flakes falling across the graves, and words come to my memory. They are from the play Euvan and I read. It is the dead, not the living, who make the longest demands. When it is over, Euvan and I must separate. His head is swollen, but he pats my shoulder. Don't trouble yourself over my wound, he says. It will heal. I move with the British back to my keeping room, and I think that, like the eyes that follow Cato, I will see those blue eyes of Captain Harkins always. The winter passes slowly. Once Cato is able to steal a cow from the scrawny herd the British secure somewhere. He hides the animal in the forest and by night drives it to Burndale. Biddy will cook it over an open fire in the swamp and sneak meat to my family. Euvan is not allowed to visit me again, but Cato brings word that he is married now and has taken Hannah and her mother to his small home. I am pleased. On a day in late March, I am sweeping the upstairs veranda when I spot the blue-violet wildflowers that have sprung up in the clearing just at the edge of the woods. I stop my work, walk to the railing, and stare. I marvel that spring has actually returned to South Carolina. Soon the honeysuckle will blossom once more around the gallows in the side garden. Will this war go on as I, a prisoner, mark the beginning of spring after spring? There is as yet no new growth in the vegetable gardens. Even the British are now hungry. It may be the empty bellies that beats them, Cato tells me one night, and I, having observed Cato's wisdom, begin to hope. On the 25th of April, there is a battle just outside Camden at Hobkirk Hill. Lord Rawdon and his troops return claiming victory, but even I can see that the army is weakened. Moreover, the slight triumph is meaningless. American troops driven back but a few miles still surround Camden, except for a narrow passage leading in the direction of Charleston. I stand when I can on the veranda, stare toward the coast, and imagine the British marching away from Camden. I can almost smile. It begins on a morning in early May. Cato wakes me before dawn. "They going," he says. "You gotta hide yourself away." But it is too late. A British soldier is beside us and orders us to the ballroom to gather blankets thrown on the floor by soldiers in a hurry. From beneath us there is the sound of wood being struck with axes. When I can slip away, I go at once to the dining room and I stand in the doorway watching. Two soldiers are swinging axes, chopping at my mother's mahogany table. I am unable to turn away until nothing is left except pieces that one man begins to heave through the glass panes of the back window. His companion now starts to hack at the sideboard. Everywhere it is the same. Broken beds, shattered mirrors. Bayonets have torn at the flowers on the sofa, and stuffing tumbles out to cover the shredded damask. What is left of Mother's sea-leaf china is smashed against the now scarred floors of our once fine home. Rage leaves me weak. Why must they destroy what is left behind? From the upstairs window, I see fires all about town and know that destruction does not touch only Kershaw House. Likely they will burn this house too, though I wonder if they will take a break so much if they planned for all to go up in flames. Will they leave behind unharmed the son of Colonel Joseph Kershaw? I find the possibility not a strong one. Am I, who have survived these long and terrible 11 months with the British, to die on this their last day? Weak from lack of food and from the horror of many days, at first the thought of death does not disturb me overmuch. But gradually I begin to think of Mother, Mary, and the little ones. What agony for them to come home and find my body among the ruins of home. I gather my strength and begin to walk, staying close to the wall. Cato and I have been separated, but he comes to find me in the keeping room. "They appears to forget about us," he says. "We gotta slip out before they burn the house." Cato goes to a back window. I look around once at my keeping room before I follow. Outside, I stare at the stockade. Many of the prisoners have been loaded into wagons and driven away by the British. I wonder if those too weak to move have been left behind, but Cato pulls me away from the pen toward the woods. When we reach the cover of trees, I stop. Come on, urges Cato, but I do not move. You go, I say, and I lean against a pine. I want to stay here. I want to see what happens to Kershaw House. Cato stays beside me. We watch the last British soldier leave our house in green. The somber sounds of the English drums and fife do not completely disappear before lighter notes begin to mix. Our men, I shout. Our men are coming. I am running from the woods and stumble over a fallen dead limb. Rising, I notice that to my left are two dogwood trees, full of white and wonderful blossoms. The dogwoods are in bloom, I shout. I do not stop. I run past the house and down the green. I run and jump and shout. The watery river calls to me. It is spring, and I long to dash to the water's edge, to see a white heron rise up in flight before me. But I look back toward the house. Some of our troops will be left to care for sick prisoners. I want to see what's happening, and the redcoats, I am sure, have left Burndale also. Soon my uncle will bring my mother and the children. They will be eager to make sure that I have not been injured or killed. The river will have to wait. I pick up a small tree branch, dragging it through the sand and grass behind me as I did when I was a child. I turn back. I will sit on the front steps of Kershaw House, and I will strain for the first sight of my family returning home. When at last they come, it is not my uncle's fine carriage, which I suppose has been taken by the British. Instead, an old wagon pulled by one thin horse comes up the hill. I do not run toward them. Instead, I hurry inside to watch from the doorway. I want to look at each one. Uncle Samuel helps Mother down. She is thin but straight. Mary jumps to the ground at once and is running. George and Sarah have grown tall, and little Rebecca's steps are no longer the uncertain ones of a baby. Mother sees me and holds out her arms. Welcome home, I shout. Welcome home to Kershaw House. Chapter 12. Dear son, my captors are allowing me to write a brief note to each of you. My prison is damp and uncomfortable. I pass the days thinking of South Carolina and my dear family. By the time this reaches you, it will be spring, and the air will be filled with the yellow pollen from Camden's guardians, the pine trees. How I long to supervise the spring planting, walking with you by my side. We get no real news here, but whispered rumor says that the British are suffering great losses. I pray such is the truth, and that I will be home shortly. I remain always your loving father, Joseph Kershaw. The British have been gone now for a fortnight. My mother does not complain about the condition of our home. She has had a banister made for the inside stairs. People say that the rumors fathers hear are true. The war is winding down. It is time for me to write him a letter. On a day in late May, I go out to the veranda. There is a small table there. I take a quill and paper. Mary has found flower seeds, which she plants now in the front garden. Soon green vines will push through the scarred soil and bright buds will cover the burial ditches. I sit at the table. For a few minutes I stare at the blank paper, but once I have written Dear Father, other words begin to come quickly to my mind. The British are gone from Camden. You will come home soon, and we will be here waiting. There are some things I must tell you. For one thing, Mother has given Cato and Biddy both their freedom and land. She has bought Biddy's husband, too, and given him his free papers. I think you will agree that it was right for her to do so. Without them, we should not have survived our ordeal. I have given Mary my books. Our Mary is determined to have an education, and I hope you will decide to provide her one as good as any boy's. Mary is brave and strong, and I believe we will all be proud of her. But the greatest change of all, I think, is in me. I can take no joy ever again in any battle. A British officer died here to save my life. Captain Harkins was a just man whose death does not allow me to hate a man only because he fights on the other side. There is also the matter of slavery. Having learned what it is to be a prisoner, I can never imprison another human being by making him my slave. I have no wish to distress you, Father, but I am not at all sure you will want me to manage your holdings in the future. Such a task would be a great honor, but I am not the boy I was before this war. Often I have stood on the veranda of Kershaw House and watched. I will be there watching for you, and I hope you will be glad to see me, the son who has changed, but who loves and respects you still. Joseph Kershaw Jr. After I walk to town to post my letter, I go back to the keeping room. Mother protests because I still sleep on a mat spread upon this brick floor. Perhaps someday I can return to the room upstairs where I slept as a boy. For now, the keeping room seems right. The end.